Hi, everyone. Thank you for your patience. We have, I think, as we pass every minute, we have more and more people joining us. So thank you and shalom from Israel. My name is Uri Steinberg. I'm the development director here at Amiel, and I hope everyone is doing well. Good evening from Tel Aviv, and welcome to the Unearthing Israel Archaeological Wonders webinar. Before we get started, I want to give you just a brief introduction about who we are. Amiel Tours, our awesome company, as the sun is kind of setting here on Tel Aviv. So as some of you already may have heard and know, Amiel Tours is a family-owned company that's been around for almost 50 years now in Israel. Yeah, we've been in the game for quite a while. We're super proud to be one of the top DMCs here in Israel, catering to all kinds of travel motivations, cultural, faith-based, in between, you name it, we deal with it. We've had the pleasure of working with fantastic travel agents and tour operators in the US for years, and we've created some incredible memories together. We love collaborating with you guys, and we really cannot wait to work with you here in Israel. And our goal is to bring you a taste of what's happening right now in Israel. And today we're going to uncover some mind-blowing archaeological wonders and giving you a glimpse of this awesomeness that awaits here for your clients. And it's really going to be epic together with our incredible guest, Dr. Shahar Shilo. We really believe, guys, in building meaningful relations and connections. And we want to connect with each one of you in the future and see how we can help you out here in Israel. All right, so enough talking from me. It's time to dive into this adventure and explore some great archaeological wonders with Dr. Shahar Shilo. Thanks for being here, and let's make this webinar one for the books. Thank you. Before I give Shahar the green light, if you've got any questions or remarks whatsoever, please write them down in the chat box, and I'll be happy to share them with Shahar once he's completed the presentation. And of course, once we're done, we'll be able to email you whatever questions you have. We'll be delighted to do that. Shahar, floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. I should say the microphone is mine, and thank you for the introduction. Friends, it's a great honor and privilege to have you. It's going to be short. By the end of the semester, I'm going to sign your accreditations. Don't worry. It's only going to be 25 hours, like a regular semester. So bear with me, please. I'm going to try and introduce to you the idea that actually much of the Bible, when you look at it from scientific point of view, meaning historical point of view, actually tells true stories. And this is going for a whole division of historical parts in the Bible. And that means even if you're not a person of faith, and I believe most of us are, still we have an amazing journey to pass on. So just to get an idea of how do I want to treat the Bible, if I may, in the next half an hour, is trying to think of the 19th century, when actually much of the European culture went for the first time outside Europe for a long adventure researching the myth of the West. I'm not talking about merchandise, which started a long time before that. I'm talking about trying to unearth and reveal the great myth of Troy, for instance, with Heinrich Schliemann in the middle of the 19th century, telling us for the first time ever that actually the stories, amazing stories regarding Zeus and Aphrodite, regarding Apollo and Artemis, are actually based on a true historical story that took place in Troy, which is in Western Turkey today. The same goes for the first translation that took place of what we call 1,000 Nights of the Caliphate of Baghdad, and the stories of amazing caravans crossing the deserts. And this kind of myth, which was first translated in the middle of the 18th century to French, actually gave birth to a whole idea of uncovering Iraq, Babylonia, of ancient Babylonia. It goes the same for the excavations of the pyramids, etc., etc. When Petra was discovered, the amazing Petra in Jordan, which took place in 1812 by Burckhardt, a crazy Swiss guy who actually made it alive back to tell the stories of this amazing marvelous city of red color. This went to the next phase, which is exploring biblical truth. And that came to an idea of asking whether King Solomon and King David actually have left anything in the field which can testify to their existence. And if I may give you an idea of how deep that goes into our culture, my friends, in 1981, Indiana Jones, the famous, the Raiders of the Lost Ark, was actually based on a true story that I'm about to reveal to you in a minute from the biblical city of David that actually took place in 1911. So when we are actually revealing and unearthing such myth, we need to remember that the seeds of truth are based very much deep inside. And Indiana Jones would be my next story, if I may, to try and show you an idea of something that actually took place in the biblical city of David, 1911. You're looking on the left side right now, or you just, nod your head if pictures are moving along. So it's okay. So you see what I see right now. On the left side of your screen right now appears a front head page of the New York Times from May 5th, 1911. Imagine this: gone with treasure that was Solomon's. English party vanishes on a yacht after digging under the Mosque of Omar, said to have king's crown, also his ring and sword. Turkish government sends high officials to Jerusalem to investigate. Imagine that actually this comes on the front page as a story that shocks and waves and shaking the world, whether they actually found stuff from King Solomon. Now, the idea was an outrageous delegation that started in Finland, went through the UK, enlisting and recruiting all the nobility and the duchess and the lords of Europe at the time. In 1908, it actually started. It went on and on until in 1909, a delegation comes to Jerusalem, secretly starts to dig the biblical city of David without anyone known but those people who are getting bribery on the Turkish government. And then for 2 years, 300 local people are recruited to actually find the lost ark. The story of unearthing the lost ark, my friends, is a true story taking place in between 1909 to 1911. The funny thing is, God knows if they found the ark, but when Steven Spielberg was looking for a good script, actually this is what he found in the archives of the PEF, the Palestine Exploration Fund, based in London today in Hindmew Street. So we are showing a story, one of many, that was behind the motivation of unearthing the Bible in the biblical city of David. And that, as I tell you right now, started in 1909, finishing on a yacht, running away to Cyprus, because Cyprus at the time was under British rule. It was dominance of Britain. And therefore, these people were safe from the Turks that wanted to kill them due to the fact that actually they have unearthed and excavated not only the biblical city of David, my friends, at the time, they were actually digging under Temple Mount, which, let me remind you, is a Muslim holy shrine, which is forbidden to dig either under it or next to it. You're actually looking right now at Parker himself, the famous Romantican who came to search for the Holy Ark in 1909, left in the city of David. He was actually living in the city of David for 2 years. And if you are looking at Indiana Jones, one of the most amazing scenes actually imitates a whole story taken from that time. His personal assistant from the village of Siluan was actually called Saleh. And Saleh is the one that appears in one of the many famous scenes that take place in Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Holy Ark. So after telling you the motivation of unearthing the Bible, let's go and see some of these amazing glimpses to the history that actually each one of those relics, which you're looking at right now, has a true chapter in the Bible behind it. What we're looking at is if a meeting in between a biblical scholar, a historian, and an archaeologist takes place around one table. And they open the Bible, they read a chapter. In a minute, I'll tell you which chapters you can read with it. And then comes the historian and he says, hello, guys, wait, I have a cross-examined text that I can show you and bring to the table to actually stand on trial. And then come the archaeologist and he says, wait, guys, I do have a proof as well that actually crosses, examines with that proof from the historical view, and it goes along, or not only in timing, but in archaeological context. And these kind of things happens a lot in the biblical city of David in Jerusalem, but not only. So what you're looking at right now, from the right side, if I may, you're looking at the stele of Meisha, the king of Moabites. This is dated to the middle of the 8th century to a very important campaign taking place in the Bible in the second book of Kings, chapter 3. If you remember, Jehoram, the king of Israel, joins up together with Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah. They both align with the king of Edom, the Edomites, and they all go together to attack the king of Moab. If you read the chapter in the Bible, my friends, it tells you about this campaign taking place on a triangle. Moabites are actually being defeated, according to the Bible, by Judeans, Israelites, and Edomites. What you're looking at is a stela found in Tel Diban in Jordan, which actually tells the same story from another angle, as if another CCTV camera was maintained in the spot, taking those pictures, if I may, of what happened nearly 3,000 years ago, and giving you an amazing story. In line number 14 on that stele, it is written, I am Meisha, king of Moab. I have defeated Jehoram, king of Israel, son of Ahab, the famous king of Israel. And if you read the Bible, my friends, these are the names. This is the story that corresponds beautifully with the Bible. Let's go to the main picture. If you look at the middle picture, you're actually looking at a very famous prison maintained by Sancherib. Sancherib was the Assyrian king that actually besieged Jerusalem in 705 BCE, according to the book of Isaiah, according to the book of Chronicles, and according to the book of Kings. If you look here, row number 18, it says, I have besieged Hezekiah, the Jewish king of Jerusalem, and I have held him like a bird in a cage. No one is to go into the city, no one is to go out. What you're actually looking at is a testimonial of historical proof from the year 701 BCE that Hezekiah was indeed the Jewish king of Jerusalem, besieged by the Assyrians. It goes the same for the left picture if you're looking at a chapter of a very famous battle taking place between Shalmaneser, the great king of Assyria, ruling in 853 BCE, and he's actually recommending here and commemorating this specific fight when he says, Yehu, the Jewish king of Israel, bow before me, and he brought me many, many sacrifices to compensate me for the battle. So we're looking at testimonials from ancient inscriptions commemorating biblical names, friends. And the same goes with the following ones, which is only the beginning of the introduction to the prologue of this introduction to my lecture. You're looking at right now different proofs of biblical stories from very famous biblical chapters, which you're all familiar with. I will just refer to the lower picture, if I may, which is known as Cyrus Cylinder. Cyrus Cylinder, my friends, is actually to be viewed on the second floor of the British Museum in hall number 26B, second gallery. And what does it say? This beautiful cylinder actually commemorates a whole chapter from the book of Nehemiah. When the book of Nehemiah tells us about the emancipation of the Jews, along with many other nations, leaving Babylonia, leaving Persia at the time, going back to settle in their homeland and rebuilding their temple. So you're looking at the book of Nehemiah telling the story, and you're reading, on the other hand, a document done by Cyrus, the king of Persia, who actually ruled in 539 BCE and emancipating the Jews. The same goes for this beautiful picture on the left side, upper left side of the screen right now, which is from Hezekiah's besiege by the Assyrians. This is very famous, to the king. You see Hebraic letters all around this beautiful bird in the middle. And the same goes for the Gezer tablet, and the same goes for more and more. Let us go deeper into stories which you should be familiar with. On the left side, you see a beautiful fragmentation of a very important inscription done by King Hazael, king of Aram, who actually commemorates the house of David. This was first found in 1994 in Tel Dan, up north in the biblical beautiful mount of Tel Dan by the Banyas, under the foot of Mount Hermon. And this is the first inscription that commemorates the existence of the house of David outside the Bible. It says specifically, I have succeeded Jehoram from the dynasty of King David, from the dynasty of the house of David, actually testifying to the truth that there was the house of David, otherwise it couldn't have been that way. On the right side, you're looking at the benediction scroll found on a skeleton in Jerusalem from the 6th century BCE, commemorating the very famous benediction scroll, or the benediction, should I say, prayer, which is so famous in the Bible. And this was as an amulet on the chest of a victim of the fight. What did we find next to it? A Babylonian arrowhead attesting to the kingdom of Babylonia invading Jerusalem, because if you use Babylonian arrowheads, this is like finding an M16 copper bullet in Vietnam. If you know that there was a Vietnam War in between the United States and Vietnam, you would have expected to find bullets of M16 in Asia. Otherwise, there was no reason for them to be in Asia. This is what we see here. We see Babylonian arrowheads in Jerusalem, attesting to the truth of the besiege by the Babylonians over Jerusalem. Another amazing inscription corresponding with the Bible beautifully regarding the Gihon spring and the tunnel of Siloam. I will shortly refer to the beautiful, I want to go to Jesus' times in a second in the biblical city of David, attesting to the pool of Siloam. But just before that, let me go back to the times of Isaiah, if I may. When you are looking at this beautiful inscription right ahead of you right now, what does it do? It commemorates the enterprise of conducting the tunnel of Siloam, bringing the water from the from the Gihon spring to the pool of Siloam. This inscription was found in the end of the tunnel, right by the pool of Siloam, a few meters before the pool of Siloam, by the end of the 19th century. Where is it today? You can actually see it on the 3rd floor of the Archaeological Museum in Istanbul, due to the fact that when it was found, the Turks ruled Palestine, Israel at that time, and this was still Palestine, and they simply took it to Turkey. But again, you're looking at Hebrew inscription commemorating the enterprise of the construction of the Gihon spring and the tunnel of Siloam from the 8th century BCE, as said in the book of Isaiah, as said in the book of Chronicles, that actually Hezekiah diverted the water of the Gihon spring to bring them into the city and prevent them from going outside to the Assyrian army. If you go back in time to the beginning of Salem, friends, we are looking at something which is deeply, deeply touching and compelling to Christians. And this is to go back to the time of Melchizedek. Melchizedek is very famous due to the fact that every communion on Sunday, every Mass, if you are Catholic, or every communion, if you're coming from the evangelical denominations, it actually commemorates and reminds us of Melchizedek. Who was Melchizedek? He was a high priest of Canaan, ruling the city of Salem, according to the book of Genesis, chapter 14, verse 18. Not only this, actually, the city of Salem is mentioned in an inscription coming from Egypt on the 18th century BCE. The story is quite amazing, because actually what you're looking at on the left side right now of the screen is you're looking at the execration texts. What are the execration texts? This is simply an idol made of clay. On the idol, there's a curse which will actually be brought upon the king who is not going to be loyal to Pharaoh. It actually commemorates the king of Salem, who was submitted to Pharaoh. And if, God forbids, he's not going to pay taxes, if he's not going to send soldiers to the army of Pharaoh, if he does not do what he's told by Pharaoh, his idol is going to be broken in a ceremonial worshiping way under the feet of the great god of Ammon, under the Sphinx of Egypt, and then Pharaoh would declare war upon him. This is a text that was found in Egypt, but let me bring my thing to the table and tell you this. We have no less than 12 different idols from this series of idols of the execration texts commemorating Canaanite cities in Canaan, which today is known to us as the state of Israel, and ancient cities such as Akko, Ashkelon, Shechem, Neapolis, Nablus, Jericho, Gezer, Armageddon, and the city of Salem are all mentioned on those texts. What does it prove, my friends? Something very simple, that in the 18th century BCE, times of Abraham, times of the patriarchs, actually Jerusalem existed where it is today, which is the city of David. That means that we have a historical and archaeological proof for the possibility of the story of Abraham being hosted by Melchizedek in the book of Genesis, chapter 14, verse 18. This story could actually exist in the climate or political climate of ancient Canaan in the 18th century BCE. The same goes for this beautiful letter on the right side, which was brought from Jerusalem on the 14th century, found in El Amarna in Egypt, and commemorating, I would say, the whining, if I may use that word, of the king of Salem, the king of Abdichiba, king of Salem, Jerusalem at the time, is whining and crying to Pharaoh, please come and help me, because if you don't help me fight my neighbors, I will not be able to pay you taxes. Again, historical and archaeological proof for the existence of Jerusalem. You can see it today, by the way, either in Cairo, and two more letters of this one are to be found in Berlin, in the Pergamon Museum in Berlin. Now we're diving into the real stuff of the city of David, friends, and now you need to open up the book of Jeremiah, chapters 34 to chapter 38. This is the story of the last weeks of Jerusalem being destroyed slowly by the Babylonians, by Nebuchadnezzar. An assembly of 4 ministers takes place in the king's court, in the king's courtyard. This assembly is actually the cabinet of war being assembled by King Zedekiah. Imagine how surprised we were. I was there actually working in the excavations of the biblical city of David, where I wrote my researches for the academy. I was actually there, I'm talking about the year 2005, and then continuation of 2008, and more to be found. We actually found these amazing proofs of the existence of high-rank ministers in the kingdom of Zedekiah, all belonging to the cabinet of war of Zedekiah, which is described so beautifully in the book of Jeremiah, chapters 34 to 38. On the left side, you can see the amazing bulla. Bulla is a seal of a letter. If I want to send a letter in the ancient times, I would seal it with an impression, and the impression would bear my name, so the person who accepts the letter needs to break the bulla in order to actually be able to read the letter. This is like enciphering and deciphering of the ancient times to make sure of confidentiality. So Gedaliah, son of Pashhur, a member of the cabinet of war of King Zedekiah. Next to him, Yochal, son of Shelemiyahu, another high-rank minister in the kingdom of Zedekiah. He is the person who actually grabbed Jeremiah by the arm and threw him to the dungeon, to the pit. Shortly after that, in 2010, we have found on the footsteps of the western stairs leading to the Temple Mount, where Jesus actually came to, overturn the money changers' desks in the famous place right next to the Ophel, next to the city of David. We have found this amazing impression bearing the name Hezekiah, son of Ahaz, king of Judea. Imagine you are actually having the privilege in 2,500 years from now to excavate the White House, and you find a bulla, should I say an impression, bearing the name George W. Bush, ex-president. This is what you're actually looking at. You're looking at someone brings his hand down from the grave from 2,800 years ago, from 2,600 years ago, and actually waves to you, hello, friends, I'm here. When you read the Bible, it's me you're reading about. And this goes the same for the one on the bottom, Gemariyahu, son of Shaphan, who is no less than the king's private secretary, the king's author, the one who actually writes all the commands of the assembly and distributes them to be executed by the different ministers. An amazing excavation that takes place as we speak right now. 3 shifts, my friends, doesn't stop. 8 hours, 8 hours, 8 hours, 3 times a day. This place never stops because we are unearthing the way leading from the biblical pool of Siloam, from the place of the miracle of the healing of the blind man by Jesus Christ. This is the amazing Herodian street leading from the pool of Siloam to the Temple Mount. You're looking at an underground tunnel that actually holds on the top of it the whole village of the city of David, because this is an amazing archaeological park, which is a living park. People are actually residing there. You can't actually evacuate them. So they have to live there, and still we want to dig underneath and make sure that they're safe. So we're holding the whole village with 5,000 people, residents in this village, on the ground, and underground lies this amazing national park of the biblical city of David, which you're more than welcome to see. A beautiful, beautiful bell, which we found some 10 years ago. This is the actual one golden bell out of 72 golden bells surrounding the robe of the high priest. The famous high priest wore a unique golden belled robe with 72 bells that would ring when he goes into the Holy of Holies. How do we know? Because not only in the Bible, in the Jewish Mishnah, they specifically talk about these bells when they make the noise as he moves inside, because no one else is to go into the Holy of Holies. And we need to know on the outside that the priest still is very much alive and can function. If God forbids we cannot hear the bells, he has a rope tied around his left foot. We can pull him outside because no one is to go inside. Imagine that when we found this golden bell 2,000 years old, it actually ding-dang like it does for generations ago. When Jesus Christ climbed to the temple, friends, he actually brought annual tax every time he came with his mother to the temple in the ancient times. What is this ancient tax? It is specifically maintained in Exodus 30. Every Jewish man above the age of 20 must bring half a shekel tax, annual tax, to the temple. Imagine how thrilled we were when we actually excavated this amazing Herodian road leading from the pool of Siloam to the Temple Mount, finding testimony to many, many half a shekels minted from silver from Tyre. This is the Jewish halacha, the Jewish commands that was only authenticated from Tyre. Only those minted in Tyre could be actually serving on Temple Mount, friends. And this is a great story that needs to be dealt with in a better timing. Let me remind you of 2 miracles taking place in the biblical city of David. And this great story, very compelling story, is very much shortly ending my short presentation, if I may. Let me take you back to 2 Samuel 5. 2 Samuel 5, before I dive into John 9. 2 Samuel 5 tells us the story of King David coming to actually conquer Jerusalem from the Jebusites. David is standing outside with his troops. The Jebusite king stands on the walls and he mocks young King David. And he tells him this: "Thou shalt not come here until you remove the blind and the lame." And it says, and David hated the blind and the lame. And David told his troops, "Whoever wants to conquer the Jebusite fortress shall touch the gutter and we shall win." Gutter by the meaning of pipe, hose, a water system, which you can still walk into in the city of David today. Now, this amazing story gives you a very short idea. Blind and lame has to do something with the prevention of King David from conquering Jerusalem. It says, "Thou shalt not come here until you remove the blind and the lame." David storms Jerusalem, conquers it by power because David is a general. But let me give you a hint to the future coming, Jesus Christ, 1 millennium exactly after King David. 1 millennium, 1,000 years would pass away, and Jesus Christ, born in Bethlehem, coming from Nazareth, is coming to Jerusalem. And he addresses the same issue. I don't know if you've ever asked yourself, how many miracles would Jesus Christ conduct in Jerusalem? Let me give you this. In the Galilee, Jesus conducted over 30 different miracles. How come that Jerusalem only has 2 miracles? Not only how come only 2 miracles are to be taking place in Jerusalem, let me ask you a deeper question. Which are the miracles taking place in Jerusalem? And you would open up the book of John and you would tell me, Shachar, it's easy. John 5, the miracle of healing of the impotent, the lame, in the pool of Bethesda. John 9:7, the healing of the blind man in the pool of Siloam. Does it ring a bell? Did you ever think why only 2 miracles and which are the 2 miracles? Jesus would conduct 2 miracles in Jerusalem in his whole ministry lifetime. One of them healing the blind, the other one healing the lame, friends. And this is to address the same issue of his great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, King David, who addressed the blind and the lame when entering Jerusalem in the time of Samuel 2, chapter 5. So this is the pool of Siloam. This is the place where you can actually open up the New Testament and testify to this amazing thing taking place when the blind person came down to the pool of Siloam, washed his face, if you remember, from the mud that Jesus put on his brow, and he told him, "Wash your face, my son, and you shall come back to see." Just before I sum up, I should say 2 more amazing reveals, but you need to understand that during the course that I give in university, a whole year, not a semester course, we take care of dozens of historical, archaeological, biblical stories having to be proved and proven in the Israeli archaeology. You're looking at an amazing city that the excavation there started in 2007, nearly 16 years ago. This professor, Yossi Gerfinkel, found that city from the time of King David. You can actually visit it today. It is known as Khirbet Kayafa, and some of the most ancient Hebraic ostracons ever recorded in history were found there. An amazing model of the temple of King Solomon, which you're looking at on the left side, was found there. It finds beautiful findings from organic dated materials from the times of King David, including a whole system of siege, etc., etc. And one last thing, just before we finish up, my friends, another reveal coming from seeds of wheat found in a huge fire taking place in Tel Chatzor. If I may remind you, your Bible, Chatzor was conquered by Joshua in the middle of the 13th century BCE. And the actually fire that took place at Chatzor corresponds very well with the Bible when it says that Joshua burnt down the Canaanite city of Chatzor when conquered it just entering the country, the ancient land of Canaan at the time, which is to become Israel. So I sum up my stories just to give you a glimpse, as we said, how does biblical archaeology corresponds beautifully with your ability to tour the land today and enjoy the Bible and the land on the same tour. I thank you very much for listening so far, friends, and I'm bringing the microphone back to my friend Uri to run the show.
Shachar, thank you, Dr. Shiloh. Thank you so much. It really is an honor to have you spend some time with all of us here in your busy schedule. Please, guys, feel free to write anything in the comments. I just want to ask one question that I was asked. You mentioned earlier on, you mentioned the obelisks. The obelisk, are they displayed somewhere?
Definitely. Every one of those things you've seen in my presentation, I personally took those pictures in British Museum, Louvre, and in the Pergamon Museum in Berlin. Some are displayed in the Israel Museum back in Israel. And I should say that there's an amazing one in Chicago as well. For those who are in Chicago, you should go there. In the amazing museum in Chicago, you will see the Prism of Sankarib as well, one of 4 left in the world.
And another question that I was asked earlier on in an email, Shachar, are how many diggings or excavations are happening at this moment that we speak around the city of David and its neighborhood? Is it still ongoing? Is it being paused? And how many, are you able to see when you're going to a visit?
So 3 facts, if I may put them together, all together. Okay, first, Israel has today over 38,000 archaeological sites in such a small land, which is the size of New Jersey. 38,000 different archaeological sites, number 1. Second, the city of David is the most excavated site on the planet, and the most time and the most number of delegations. It is excavated since 1867. Over 25 universities and delegations took place there in the last 160 years. As we speak right now, there are at least 4 different excavations done by the Hebrew University, the Tel Aviv University, the Bar Ilan University, and the Ministry of Antiquities, all conducted within the biblical city of David and its neighborhood. It never stops. And if you are asking me, Shachar, how much of the city of David is actually unearthed by now? Less than 10%.
Wow.
So our grandsons will still have future there.
Amazing. Amazing. Dr. Shilo, thank you again so much. And we appreciate your time. And everyone here, we appreciate the time that you've taken from your schedule to converse with us here in Israel, far away over the Atlantic. We want to tell you, all of us here at Amiel, we're thrilled to have you on board. We're thrilled to have a conversation with you and to see how we can get you over here to Israel. If you've never been to Israel and you want to learn more about destination, would love to take you over and show you a beautiful country. There's so much to see. Shachar just touched upon this snippet of Israel, which is the city of David. So we are here in Amiel, fully energetic and ready to take care of you. We'll be happy to send you an email afterwards and reach out, hear your thoughts about the presentation, hear how we can be maybe in touch with you and be kind of your friends here in Israel. So again, thank you for taking the time. We wanted to make it short because we know, that's the middle of the day over in the US. So from all of us here in the Amiel family, Shalom. Thank you again for your time. And we do look forward to being in touch with you and seeing y'all in Israel. Thank you again and good night.
Thanks.
Thank you.